Welcome to Car Sales Talk 101, where it's all about life in the car business. Telling you like it is. Here's the man with the plan, Terry Cameron. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Car Sales Talk 101. I'm Terry Cameron. Thanks for hanging out with me again this week. Before we get started, I need to apologize for being a little late on this episode, but spent a few days in Chicago while my son was running the marathon and got a little ill, and I've been under the weather, I guess, for the past week or so, and I just did not have the energy to sit in front of this microphone and talk. I had just enough energy to get up every morning and go to work, which is not an easy task. So, again, I apologize, but let's go ahead and forget about that and get started. Remember, guys, as soon as you get a chance, head on over to Apple Podcast or whatever platform you listen to this show on, and please give me a rating and write me a review. And the young lady at the end of the podcast, she'll go ahead and give you my email address and contact information. So if you have any questions that you'd like me to ask, or if you'd like to just tell me how good or bad I'm doing, shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to respond to you. This week I want to talk about the power of the cosigner. You know, it's a long lost art. Years ago, I had a salesperson who's now a very successful manager. His name was Ernesto. And Ernesto became an expert in getting cosigners. I mean, as soon as he turned in a customer with a cosigner that didn't qualify, he found another one. It wasn't uncommon for him to go through 5 or 6 cosigners before he finally called it quits. And I'm telling you, that is what a lot of us need to do. Today, one of the biggest complaints that customers have about purchasing a car, of course, other than the price, is the time that it takes. How much time is wasted? You know, they go in to buy a car. They'd like to buy the car. They like to get the paperwork done, and they like to go home. And it takes an awful lot of time sometimes to do that, especially when we're busy, and especially when we may have a challenged customer that takes a little bit of extra work to get approved at one of our banks, or maybe they're going through their bank. Well, we've got to do everything we can to speed that up and also give us a better chance, the best chance of earning their business and getting an approval. And a lot of times that rests with the cosigner. I always ask my my salespeople, why they didn't get the cosigner right up front. They're dealing with a young man or a young lady, and they're trying to purchase a car. Their significant other is there, whether it's their girlfriend, it doesn't matter. Their husband, it doesn't matter. Boyfriend, grandma, it doesn't matter. But whoever is there offering their support, we tend to forget about them. The customer fills out the application, and let's face it, how many of them tell you, hey, I really don't have very good credit? Well, but I do have a cosigner if I need one. And we just go ahead and skip through the cosigner, get the customer's information, submit everything to the bank, waste the finance manager's time, waste the buyer's time, and quite frankly, waste you and your customer's time, because the deal that we submitted to the bank, structure, customers, whatever, it just wasn't good enough to get bought. But we had the customer's cosigner right there. You know, we always talk to our customer, salespeople always tell me that, well, you know, they didn't want to use their cosigner. Their cosigner said they don't have as good as credit as them. Their credit's bad. The cosigner doesn't work, doesn't have an income. You know, those things really don't matter. We're not giving the bank an opportunity to see the whole picture, and we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to send the whole picture to the bank to where they can approve the loan. Who cares whether or not the cosigner has good credit or bad credit? A lot of times, and I'm sure if you've been doing this for a certain amount of time, you've realized that people sometimes have much better credit than they really thought. I mean, I know customers that were 10, 15 days late on their electric bill, and they finally got a notice in the mail saying, hey, you need to pay this bill or we're going to turn off the electricity or we're going to turn off the water. But none of that stuff hits their credit. They don't know that. They think that is part of their credit. And I guess eventually, if they wait long enough, it could become part of their credit. And we end up pulling their credit and find out that they can buy anything they want. As long as their income can support it, they can buy anything they want. We just didn't give them the opportunity. So how do we do this? What do we do? customer comes on the lot and they're right up front, and this happens an awful lot of times. Hey, and let me tell you, it's not just because they say they have bad credit. If they have somebody there, you might as well ask them to co-sign at the same time. What can it hurt? I once had a wise man tell me, hey, if it can hurt, it might help. So I want you to start thinking about this, getting the co-signer right up front, whether you need it or not, whether they have a job, whether they have good credit or bad credit, whether they have any kind of income. It really doesn't matter. Even in car insurance, if you add a spouse to the equation, it shows a little bit more stability and a responsibility, and it helps your insurance rates. At least in most states it does. So it also works the same way with credit. When you add another person to the loan, there's a little bit more stability. And if it just happened to be a spouse or a mom or a dad or a grandma, that have some authority over the other person, that adds even more stability. And most states, like here in Texas, if I have a grandma that's a 750 credit score and then the grandson's a 550, we can swap them around and put grandma first, and then all the rates, all the callback is based on their credit. And it doesn't really matter. Again, in Texas, it doesn't matter. You're not a co-signer, you're really a co-buyer. And when you look at your credit, it doesn't say whether you're first or second on the loan. It just has a big fat C, which means you are a joint owner of that. You have a co-buyer on there, and you have just as much blame as you do credit whenever you're paying your bills because of that. So here's what I want you to do. Once again, if you're there with the customer, ask for the co-signer. Is there anybody, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, or Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer, is there anybody that you'd like to add as a co-signer? A lot of times they'll say, well, no, and then you can ask them, well, what about your spouse right here? Well, she doesn't work or he doesn't work. Who cares? Get it anyway. And what I always tell the customers, look, give me all the information I can to help you get the car that you want. If we don't need to use your co-buyer or co-signer, we won't. But if we have that information right up front, if we need it, we can get that submitted to the bank so we don't have to waste a whole lot of your time. You can get everything you want and get out of here in a timely fashion. Ask for it. Don't wait for the finance manager or sales manager to say, hey, can they get a co-signer? And the reason they're asking that is chances are they've already been turned down by the financial institutions. Let's not wait for that to happen. Let's get all this information up front. Let's get the co-buyer. And here is what I consider a good co-buyer. Number one is a spouse. That's probably your best co-buyer / co-signer is a spouse, because you live together and you have a little bit of responsibility. You got somebody to slap somebody upside the head if they're late on their payments. So a spouse is probably the number one. Number two is mom or dad. Get mom and dad on there. Mom and dad, really, if they have the stability and the credit, you can buy pretty much anything because of them. They didn't get to have that great credit score because they made mistakes and they weren't paying their bills. Friends, well, I don't know about friends. Friends don't normally work that well. And in today's society, that friend may be the significant other. So you got to be careful how you ask that, but that works. It doesn't matter. Now, if it's a friend that doesn't live at the same address, and I'm in a military town, so we have a lot of that. Some of them, the friends live in total different states. Well, that's not a real strong cosigner. That's going to make it a little bit tough. But again, if that's all they have, you need to ask for it and you need to get it. Get that cosigner's information right up front. Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer. If we don't need it, we won't use it. But if we do need it, we'll have it handy right there, and we'll be able to get this thing taken care of right away. I can't tell you how many times that's happened where we've got a cosigner and the customer's been shopping. The previous dealerships that they were at never asked for the cosigner, and we can tell because when we look at the inquiries on the credit report, it shows. But they never asked for the co-buyer, and they didn't get the business. So I might have been the second, third, or fourth stop, and I'm the first one that asked for the co-buyer or cosigner right up front and got that information, and now we have an approval. The customer's really happy. They're driving away in our car, and you have a chance to sell more cars to their friends and family. So that cosigner is powerful. You got to make sure you ask for it up front, whether you need it or not. Don't let the customer tell you, well, they don't have good credit. Well, they don't have a job. This or that. Who cares? Let your finance manager decide if that's going to help or hurt. You're going to sell a lot more cars as long as you give every opportunity to your business manager to get that deal approved. Piece of cake. Just start asking for it. Right? Ask for it all. Take what you can get. All right, guys, remember, the sky's the limit, and I'm going to see you in the next week or two.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please rate it and write a review on Apple Podcast. We appreciate your valuable feedback. You can email Terry at 10minutesalestalk@hot.rr.com. And don't forget to share the show with a friend.